JICA lecture series of Japanese development experience to date, in line with JICA Global Agenda, Cooperation Strategies by Development Issues.
Japan's experience in peaceful state building and post-war disaster reconstruction. JICA's efforts to create peaceful and just societies. Today's lecturer will be Mr. Murotani Ryutaro, Senior Director and Head of the Office for Peacebuilding in JICA's Governance and Peacebuilding Department.
My name is Ryutaro Murotani. I am the Senior Director and Head of Office for Peacebuilding in JICA's Governance and Peacebuilding Department. In this lecture, I will introduce JICA's experiences in supporting peacebuilding in various countries based on Japan's own experience of state building and reconstruction. We will further discuss JICA's principles and approaches to conflict-affected countries and areas. JICA believes that in order to realize and sustain peace, resilient states and societies that can prevent conflicts need to be built. For this purpose, it is important for governments and people to build trustful relations with each other through mutual dialogues to reflect people's voices in development planning and implementation, and to deliver quality public services. Through development cooperation that emphasizes human resource and infrastructure development, JICA has worked on building state institutions that prevent conflicts from recurring. Back in the 1990s, JICA started peacebuilding efforts, including reconstruction assistance and cooperation for building new state institutions for the newly independent countries of the former Yugoslavia. We also worked for reconstruction following the independence of Timor-Leste and the recovery and reconstruction of Afghanistan. In Iraq, we also used ODA loans to support the rehabilitation and reconstruction of infrastructure while developing human resources to support new state institutions. In South Sudan, to help the newly independent country, we have been working to develop human resources and infrastructure while also dealing with the changing security situation. And in 2022, the construction of the Nile Bridge, also known as the Freedom Bridge, was finally completed after many years of tireless efforts. Based on these experiences, JICA has developed the Global Agenda for Peacebuilding as its strategy for peacebuilding. The agenda sets out a policy of cooperation to build resilient states and societies that can prevent the outbreak and recurrence of violent conflicts. Guided by the concept of human security, JICA emphasizes prevention and aims to build resilient states and societies to protect the life, livelihood, and dignity of each individual. More specifically, our approach combines protection and empowerment, namely institution building and capacity development of government, and community reconciliation and empowerment, with the aim of creating a state that is trusted by the people and a resilient society with social cohesion. Conflicts are caused by various factors such as political disputes, social disparities, and the lack of the rule of law. Without a mechanism to mediate these various disagreements and social issues, as well as stabilize society, conflicts will recur. To prevent conflicts, we need an institution, a state that is trusted by the people. To gain the trust of the people, the state must be functional, inclusive, and transparent. it should be able to deliver public services in response to people's voices. While national structures such as constitutions and elections are important, the response of local administrations, which are the closest to the people, directly affects the people's perception of and trust in government. Therefore, JICA places particular emphasis on strengthening the capacity of such local administrations, especially in providing public services based on dialogue with and the trust of the people. At the same time, when societies and communities remain fragmented, it becomes difficult for the people's voices to be heard by the government and for the government to respond to their voices. In such situations, JICA seeks to promote reconciliation and social cohesion among the people and strengthen community resilience. How do you build institutions and empower the people in conflict-affected areas? And how do you promote dialogue and trust building between the government and the people, as well as among the people? Let us look at the cases of Mindanao in the Philippines and Côte d'Ivoire.
Mindanao Island is located in the southern part of the Philippines. In the midwest of the island, there is an area called the Bangsamoro region, home to a sizable Muslim population. In Bangsamoro, tensions increased as Christians took land away from the Moros, Muslims who had lived in the area for generations. Starting in the early 1970s, in an effort to gain independence from the Philippines, there was a succession of armed conflicts by the Moro that continued for over 40 years. In 1996, the Moro National Liberation Front, the MNLF, and the Philippine government reached the final peace agreement, and the MNLF participated in the government of the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao, ARM. However, the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, MILF, which had broken off from the MNLF and became the majority faction, could not accept ARM autonomy as a political solution and has waged a battle against the Philippine government. At the request of the Philippine government and the MILF, since 2006, Japan has participated in the International Monitoring Team, the IMT, which functions as a neutral peacekeeping mission. At the same time, Japan has begun providing development assistance called the Japan Bangsamoro Initiative for Reconstruction and Development, or JBIRD, which has contributed to the peace process, development cooperation, and peace consolidation. After the 2014 Comprehensive Peace Agreement between the Philippine government and the MILF, JICA launched the Quick Impact Project. Intended to spread peace, this project provided assistance in institutional building and human resource development, community development and the improvement of livelihoods, and regional development based on careful attention to regional needs. The community development projects were designed to build the capacity of the communities and their technical capabilities. In terms of community development in conflict-affected areas, at that time, before the establishment of the Bangsamoro Transition Authority, BTA, JICA worked with the Bangsamoro Development Agency, BDA. On the front lines of the project are volunteers known as catalysts. My name is Mohaladin Akmal. It has been 6 years since I entered the BDA, the Bangsamoro Development Agency. Through a wide range of JICA's projects, my knowledge has increased. I have even learned how to teach people technologies and skills, like how to make vegetables, and many other things. This project gives Muslims and Christians who have never worked with each other an opportunity to grow vegetables together while learning vegetable cultivation techniques. To ensure that peace is not set back, Akmal, a volunteer in charge of development and extension, provided trainings to local communities. How do you go about guiding a community towards peace? This is one of the main goals of the Bangsamoro Development Agency. We think it is possible to develop a community without conflicts. In Côte d'Ivoire, after the outbreak of political turmoil in 2002, the northern region of the country fell under the control of anti-government forces. Over the next 10 years, the country was virtually split into two parts, north and south. Most of the government officials, as well as the residents, sought refuge in the south. Public services in the northern and central regions, such as education, healthcare, water, and electricity, were suspended due to economic stagnation. Living standards declined and exacerbated poverty. A peace agreement was signed in 2007, and officials were appointed to the northern and central areas from the following year. However, the country remained unstable, and administrative services did not recommence until 2010. In order to promote decentralization to restore and develop the central and northern regions, local governments were required to make development plans and to function as public service providers. Since 2013, JICA has been implementing the Project on Human Resource Development for strengthening local administration in the central and northern regions of Côte d'Ivoire, PCNCI, to build a framework of public services and improve people's perception of such services. To gain mid- and long-term stability in those areas, as well as the country itself, it was considered important to build up people's trust in the government. In cooperation with the central ministries, PCNCI developed a framework in which local governments could provide services themselves and support local government officials with capacity development programs. It also provided administrative support for community organizations so that they could operate and maintain facilities like the water supply or schools themselves. Among people's needs, the restoration and expansion of access to education and the water supply was particularly high. Thus, PCNCI carried out training as well as pilot projects for local government officials. After receiving training, the administrative officers gain knowledge and experience through these pilot projects, and then work on the front lines of administrative services.
My name is Nina Ann. I'm in the Resident Response and Culture Division, and am mainly in charge of education and training. JICA gave us the skills we needed to make full use of our abilities. We participated in JICA's PCNCI program to further enhance our skills. And through the program, we learned different ways to do our jobs in groups. Thanks to the training, we are able to implement projects together. We now visit the villages often and are able to understand the needs and realities of the residents. Before, I barely knew any of the villages in this region. I didn't go outside. I just worked at my desk.
These efforts to foster trust between the government and the people, and among the people, partially based on lessons from Japan's own experiences in state building and post-war and post-disaster reconstruction, are valid in various conflict-affected situations. Obviously, in making these efforts, it is important to take specific conflict experiences as well as historical and cultural background in each country and region into consideration. We need to adapt to the local context in each society. There can be cases in which development cooperation may not be a sufficient instrument to realize reconciliation and justice, and it requires initiatives and compromise from politics and the judicial system. In recent years, the increase of violent conflicts has led to an increase in forced displacement. Now, the number of refugees and displaced persons exceeds 100 million. Many of these cases are becoming more protracted. To this end, JICA is promoting the Humanitarian Development Peace Nexus, or the HDP Nexus, in which JICA collaborates with humanitarian agencies and other organizations. To deal with these protracted situations, a development approach can provide added values. We support host governments' efforts for inclusion of refugees and displaced persons by strengthening the capacity of host communities and by supporting the self-reliance of refugees and displaced persons. We work with humanitarian agencies to adjust our ways of cooperation to each country's situation, aiming for solutions that leverage the potential of host communities as well as refugees and displaced persons. JICA also believes that South-South cooperation, mutual learning between conflict-experienced countries, is also effective. For example, mutual learning is very effective for issues unique to conflict-experienced countries, such as mine action and the removal of unexploded ordinances, or UXOs. Cambodia, which has more than 30 years of experience in humanitarian mine action and is highly regarded internationally, has shared its knowledge with Colombia, Lao PDR, Angola, and Iraq. We have also begun South-South cooperation in our experience with reconstruction and strengthening local governments in conflict-affected areas. We have conducted activities to share with local administrators from Somalia our experiences in rebuilding local administration and restoring trust among the population in the northern region of Uganda, which was affected by 20 years of violent conflict. Efforts to foster trust between the government and residents, and among residents, which we emphasize to prevent conflicts, are elements that were also important in Japan's experience in state building and post-war and post-disaster reconstruction. Lessons, both good and bad, can be learned from the Japanese experience. Each of these efforts apply the principles of human security and will lead to the protection of human dignity, the rule of law, and the creation of societies based on dialogue and trust, leading to a peaceful and just world. We will leverage Japan's experience and expertise to help build governments that are trusted by the people through institution building and human resource development, and promote community reconciliation and the restoration, reconstruction, and strengthening of social and human capital with the aim of realizing human security.
Japan has modernized from a non-Western background to establish a free, democratic, prosperous, and peace-loving nation. In this sense, Japan is one of the best development models for the developing countries and regions today. In addition, Japan has contributed to economic growth in many developing countries, especially in Asia. Therefore, we would like to share with you Japan's unique experience of modernization, which is different from Western countries, and cooperation for developing countries through this video material. This video series provides a comprehensive summary by development issue according to the lineup of JICA's cooperation strategy called the JICA Global Agenda.